No, you don't know now, nigga. So, bitch, you don't know now, nigga.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to an all-new episode of our podcast, Rated MA. I am Tavarus.
And I'm Blake. And have more cocktail in hen house.
I never have an awesome introduction, but I am Daebrian and I'm working on it.
And today we have a very, very special guest, Ms. Shar Jossell, a media personality, entertainment journalist, and she also has a podcast called Kiss and Tell Radio that comes out every Friday with her co-host Jace.
Yep.
And she's also a trans woman.
Yep.
So today we are going to get down to the nitty-gritty because I personally have a lot of questions about the trans community that I really don't have anyone to ask. And I actually met Shar about 2 years ago at the BET Awards doing production. And I saw her and I was like, she's kind of tall, like something. Like I said, something is going on. I don't know.
She's 5'9". That's a lot of blonde hair.
And flats. Yeah. Is it a man? Is it a woman? But I couldn't really tell. But she's good friends with a friend of mine's, Ty. Mm-hmm. And I finally got to have a real conversation with her this past December on Christmas.
No, Thanksgiving.
Oh, Thanksgiving. Yeah. And she was really, really open, really cool, and just a great sport. And I immediately asked her if she would come and be a guest when we got our show up and running. So she's now here.
And you actually sat in on one of our shows, one of Kiss and Tell.
Oh, yeah. When I was trying to learn, like, how to do the podcast thing, she let me sit in on her show. So that was great.
Research. Yeah. Oh, he was on.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
So today we're going to get started. I actually want to find out about your whole life, your whole transition, starting from childhood.
Oh, okay.
So, take me back to the beginning. Where are you from? Is it a single family household? How many siblings?
Okay. Well, I'm from Chicago. Well, a suburb in Chicago. I come from a 2-parent household. I felt like I had to always dispel that when I was in undergrad because I went to an HBCU.
Okay.
So there was I went to Langston University in Oklahoma. Okay. Second season of BET's College Hill.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And there's this notion that I feel like comes with a lot of black LGBT people, whether you be gay, lesbian, transgender, whatever, that you were raised strictly by your mom, especially, And so it prided me to be like, no, my mother and father, and my father's no wuss. My father's from the Rockwell Projects on the west side of Chicago. It's not like my dad's some type of pipsqueak. Yeah. I was raised in a middle class suburb of Chicago, and I have 2 sisters. So it's 3 girls in total.
Okay.
And my sisters are twins. They live in New York, and that is a.
And are they older or younger?
They're younger. We're 5 years apart. Like Blue and Rumi and Sir.
Okay.
We're 5 years apart.
And mind you, I wanted to say you're sitting here looking like Beyonce. You're looking like a full Beyonce moment.
Thank you.
Everything.
I was a little nervous because at first my hair, before my curls really fell, I was looking very 1960s doo-wop pop Stepford wife.
I'd have been here for that too.
Really? Yeah. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
So what was it like growing up in Chicago? When did you first start getting feelings of, I feel like something is different with me?
Well, I knew something was different.
Okay.
I inherently felt that something was different. I just didn't have the language for it. I didn't have the language to articulate it. And I first came out as gay because that's what everybody told me that I was. That's what I've been hearing for so long. I've always been feminine. As a teenager, by the time I reached 16, 17, especially 18, I was gender non-conforming.
Okay.
So I wasn't wearing men's clothing. I was still wearing I was wearing makeup, but it was like a light dusting.
Okay.
And I got my belly button. I got my belly button pierced for my 16th birthday. Things like that. So it was going away from what I guess would stereotypically be defined as male.
Okay.
And so I felt something. It was young, single digit young,
Wow.
8, 9 years old. I just didn't have the language to communicate, and I also didn't know that it was a possibility.
Okay.
Which I think is very important to bring up. And then when I saw saw that it was a possibility, I was even more scared, simply because there was no example. Right. Every example that I saw of a trans woman growing up was a joke. It was a caricature. She was either on Jerry Springer or she was prostituting. And you know, I'm not demonizing sex workers. I mean, girl, get in where you fit in. But I just knew that I didn't want to be either one of those things.
Yeah. So when you first identified as gay, how did you come out to your parents?
Oh my God, it was all the drama. Like, I'm so dramatic.
And how old were you?
I was a freshman in high school.
Okay. 14.
Yes, and that was a very interesting time for me. I still remember because coming off the heels of 8th grade, I was peer pressured to date girls. So I had a lot of guy friends. I was always feminine. Like, they always made fun of me, but I rolled with it. And so I was dating girls, I remember, and that summer, like that transitional summer going to a new school from 8th grade to high school, my parents got a divorce. I had sex with a guy for the first time. It was just a lot of stuff that happened that summer. And so I remember I ended up I can't remember how I told my dad, because at this point my parents had separated. They were married for 20 years prior to getting a divorce. But I can't remember how I told my dad. I don't even know if I told him. I think it's just like, roll with it. But with my mom, it was so dramatic. Oh my God. So dramatic. Like, I was crying. I think I ended up throwing up too. I think I just was so nervous because I'm a research girl, so I read a lot, and at the time we didn't have access to like YouTube and things where you could pull up quick videos for references. So I'm like in the back of the library reading people's stories and just talking to people. And I knew my mom was not a closed-minded woman, but I did not know how she was going to receive that. I didn't even know how my girlfriends were going to receive it.
Because mothers always know. And you were already feminine, so it was more so of a confirmation type of thing.
Yes. And I need to still ask my mom some more questions about, like, did anyone ever tell you type thing? Because my mom and I are very tight, very tight. But so, I ended up telling my mom. I remember, like, crying. I think I even threw up. And she just was kind of like, okay, well, what do you want for dinner? Like, stop all of this.
She's like, I've been
so
I ain't got time.
Right. It really wasn't a lot of pushback because I feel like you said, a mother always knows. She was just counting down the days on the calendar, you know. And so, it was a perfect intro to a new environment, to high school, to establish a new identity.
So first you came out as a gay boy.
Yes.
And then what was your first sexual experience like with a male as a gay boy?
That was something...
like, how did y'all meet? What was out back then? BGC?
No.
This was the 8th grade.
This was, yes. Yeah. He actually lived around the corner from me.
Okay.
And I don't want to go into detail.
No, you must go into detail on the Ratedmapodcast Ma Podcast. We told our auntie.
He lived around the corner from me. I'll say, because we have it's very weird right now. But so he lived around the corner from me, and we knew a lot of the same people. We grew up in the same community, obviously. Mm-hmm. And one day I was over his house because we knew a lot of the same people. Mm-hmm. And I remember being on his computer, not a laptop. I'm talking about like PC.
Fat dad.
Yes, it was in his room. Mm-hmm. And he said he was going to hop in the shower. Ooh. And he came out of the shower and my back was turned because I was on the computer. And before I knew it, I know this sounds very like Hollywood, but there was a towel dropped and I was very nervous. Mind you, I should mention that he was 3 years older than me.
Okay.
So I was 14, he was 17.
Ooh. Oh, now hold on. Were you at his house because you were attracted to him or you guys were just friends?
No, I was over there because we had a lot of mutual friends. Okay. And so other people had been there, like had been in and out like that day.
Okay. Oh,
like, you know, like a rotating thing. And I'm just going to hang out here. You know, I didn't think anything of him. He was attractive. Yeah. But I didn't know my feelings were playing tug of war with me. I didn't know. And I certainly wasn't thinking on acting on anything.
And you didn't think he was gay at all?
I honestly did not.
Okay.
I did not. Mm-hmm. And even, you know what, in hindsight, I don't know if he was. I know that I had a pattern of dealing with men who identified as down low and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I don't, to this day, I don't have any recollection of any rumor, anything surfacing of him being involved in any sort of same-sex thing. And now he has a family. Oh. He has a wife and children and... Yeah.
Oh, nice.
That's half of my teenage years. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah. I won't even get into that because, or maybe later we can talk about that.
Sure. So after you had sex for the first time with the man as identifying as a gay male, how did you feel?
I felt vindicated. I felt uncomfortable.
Okay.
I really did. Because I was like, because, before you have sex, I feel like we have these things drawn up in our head of what it's going to be like, like these fantasies.
Oh, yeah.
You listen to these songs, you watch TV, and you think, and it's a very different experience.
Yeah.
And but I felt validated. Like I was like, okay, all right.
Okay.
Before having sex with him, had you had sex with women?
I did not go all the way with a girl, but I did try to. And the reason why I tried to, it was not a genuine attraction. Sorry, sis, if you're listening. It was not a genuine attraction. It was the researcher in me, honest to God. Like, I've always been a curious person, and I felt like I would be doing myself a disservice if I did not try this. If I did not at least pursue, because that's what the world around me was telling me. Yeah. That was what I was met with. Well, you say you this, how do you know? And you hadn't even had that.
Right.
Like that type thing. Right. So even in 8th grade, I was like, okay, well.
So when you say try, like y'all got naked, y'all laid in bed.
Yes.
And you just couldn't get
This was a girl who was my girlfriend at the time. And when I say girlfriend, it was literally like we were like girlfriends.
Right, exactly.
But
like, I guess we should be doing something.
Right, that's what it felt like. That's what it felt like. And I remember I had to look around her room. She had B2K everywhere. So that's what got the juices flowing.
Yeah.
And because it wasn't her.
Yeah.
And,
Raz B.
it was not Raz B. It was Jarrell J Boog.
Yes, I love J-Boog.
Everybody live for a J Boog.
I love J-Boog. He still look good.
J-Boog. He does.
Fat ass on him though.
He does.
But he cool.
But see, I'm not a back climber.
Right, but
so I didn't pay attention to anything like that.
Oh.
And so yeah, I tried. It did not. It was just too awkward. The energy, and so I left that alone. And then literally like a month later, I was with the guy.
Okay.
Did you and the guy go all the way?
It was partial.
Okay, hold on. You said he came out, he dropped his towel.
Yes, I don't want to watch. Like,
you don't want to.
There was oral involved, and there was him getting on top of me. But it turns out I don't feel like he knew what he was doing fully.
Okay.
There was no like lubrication. It was like Lubriderm, like lotion.
Okay.
It was like he was in.
That still happens.
It like not in this house. Not in my house.
Niggas be having baby oil gel, Vaseline, no oil lube.
Baby oil gel is the best.
You know that breaks condoms. But
this is rated MA.
No. So yeah, it was like we didn't fully have, like he was like in and out, and then we finished with
Okay. All right. So
very teenage sex.
It was very teenage, trying out. Yeah.
Okay, so 14.
It wasn't full on like porn at all. No.
So 14, you come out. You identify as gay. You have your first experience with a male. At what point do you start feeling like now I might want to be like a woman?
Well, it wasn't that I wanted to be a woman. The thing is, I always was one. I just didn't have the language.
Okay.
And so it wasn't until this was like a decade later.
Okay.
Honestly.
Really?
Yes, it was like a decade later. But keep in mind, I was gender non-conforming the entire time. So when I did go to like the Bayou Classic in New Orleans and things like niggas would be like Amber Rose, because I had like a blonde fade.
Okay.
I didn't have boobs, but I was stacked. And so.
He was coming through.
Yeah,
it was probably to be your girlfriend.
For the people who don't understand, what is gender non-conforming?
Yeah.
Okay, so gender conforming means that you conform to the societal ideals of what they tell you are, or what you identify as. So if you identify as a man and you are born a boy or a man or whatever, you conform to those ideals because that's what you identify as.
Right.
So I do manly things. So non-conform means the opposite. If a stud would be a gender non-conforming female, and a very feminine presenting, not acting, but a very feminine presenting man would be non-conforming man. Like men who wear eyelashes and get their nails done and things, but are still comfortable in their manhood.
Or have pink lace fronts.
You gotta love the first show.
So yeah, that is what I was, and so it wasn't until I didn't actually transition until after college.
Okay,
but I was always I keep reinforcing that because I feel like so often this narrative is tossed out there like trans women were like these men, like for example, Caitlyn Jenner, the decathlon captain of the football. That was never me.
Yeah,
that was never. I was always the fish.
So were you popular in high school?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Despite all of that, I was fairly popular because I was active.
Okay.
I've always been smart, so people wanted to cheat off of my homework, and I've always been a social butterfly. I was not excluded from being invited to parties. It just was, I had no reason to go. Like, I would go, but it was for the sole purpose of holding my girlfriends up as they dug their nails into my shoulders dancing with guys, because I couldn't dance or do anything, you know?
Yeah.
And so... Yeah, so I was popular. Like, that never wavered. I always had a group of girls around me, and then you know, it would become like those things like where the girls, you know how girls kind of play, I guess, like the punching bag, like, you know, like, he cool or whatever, like when dudes come. So dudes didn't have an issue with me either.
Yeah, okay.
Because I never crossed any lines.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I did. When I was young, I did. But you live and you learn.
Yeah.
And so, it was after college that I transitioned. So,
how do you go from I'm gay to the first time you ever put on makeup? Like, what made you that confident to, like, try that?
Honestly, it started with me having a breakout, and I was vain.
Okay.
And so I was like 16, and I used to just do like spot makeup. Like, I remember saying, like, I'll never wear like blush, eyeshadow. Like, I'm not that girl.
Yeah.
Like, the most you would get from me in high school, and even at the beginning of college, was just like some foundation, maybe a little highlight, and my brows filled in. No mascara, no lip gloss, no nothing. And then with each year, like, my parents have a running joke that with each year it was something new.
Yeah.
So I'd go back to school in Oklahoma, and then when I came home for Christmas, it's like, okay, there's manicures and pedicures. Then I go back to school, and when I come back for summer break, oh, there's lashes now. Like, it was.
And it went from strip lashes to individuals.
Yeah, it was an evolution. That's what I call my transition. It wasn't I woke up one morning and I felt like a woman, and this is what I'm going to do. It was a literal evolution, and I had just reached the peak of that gender non-conformity, and I don't know if there's anything past what I am now, but so it happened after college.
So were your parents, like, scared for you once you started doing that? Especially coming from Chicago.
So when I came out, what launched into me transitioning, honestly, was this was like 2011 maybe, and I was finishing up an internship, and I had come across Janet Mock.
Oh, yeah.
I come across.
Tell the people who Janet Mock is.
Janet Mock is a trans activist. She is my big sister, a confidant. She's an amazing woman. Google her, you'll get all her tea. She's an author, New York Times best-selling author, talk show host, pundit, all of that. So Janet, I had seen her, Marie Claire. She had done like an op-ed for Marie Claire, and I just remember thinking to myself, like, wow, like, this is possible. You can be trans and have a brain.
Right.
Like, because I never saw that. Even the girls I used to joke around with, because I used to sneak and go to, like, the gay district. I had a car when I was 16, so I used to round up my friends and we'd sneak and go up north. That's what it's called in Chicago. And it was fun to play with the working girls, like the trans working girls. Like, they'd be beat, but the mouths were slick. The comedy was like queens of comedy level. Like, their stand-up routines were hilarious, and they weren't even performing. That's just who they were. And so once I saw Janet, she instantly became my possibility model. Fast forward to January of 2012, I caught wind on Twitter that she was coming to, like, Chicago State to speak. And I was like, I have to meet this woman. Like, I have to fucking meet her. I go there, listen to the seminar, meet her, instantly connect with her. Like, instantly. She still makes jokes about the question that I asked, because it was like a Q&A. And so the girls were asking questions of survival.
Yeah.
Like, Janet, how do I get day by day? I stood up because I had a job at the time, a potential job offer for WGNO, which is the ABC affiliate of New Orleans.
Okay.
And I had a job offer. And so she says it's like a brilliant question, but I make fun of myself because it was kind of assholey of me, because literally these girls are like, just how do I make it to tomorrow, bitch? And I'm like, I'm entering a new workplace, and I'm gonna start transitioning, and I don't know how do I survive in the workplace with WGNO in the South, in New Orleans, you know? And so I met her, and then also there I met a trans woman. She's an actress now, like she's on Claws, TNT's Claws with Niecy Nash and Karichi, Angelica Ross. Yeah. She's also gonna be on Ryan Murphy's Pose, which comes out this summer. But when I met Angelica at the time, she was working she was working in social services in Chicago. And so I met her and a few other trans women, like I call them my trans elders, even though they're not that much older than me. They were far more accomplished. And I'd never seen women like this. I want to stress how important representation is. I had never seen trans women, quote unquote, with the brain.
Okay.
I had never seen anything like that, like working, quote unquote, normal jobs, leading, quote unquote, normal lives. And I keep saying quote unquote because if you don't do that, that doesn't mean you're not normal or valuable or worthy. It's just the path that I was trying to go down. I didn't see that reflected in any media. And so it happened very quickly. So January I met them. I exchanged information with Janet. I stayed in contact with her. By April, I had started my medical transition. So January, April 2012. And then by June, the judge banged the gavel banged the gavel down and granted me my name change. So within 6 months, I had started medically transitioning and I had a name change.
So normally they require you to do like therapy before you...
Yes, I did do that, but it was only one session for me.
One session?
It was one session. It's more therapy for surgeries. I've yet to go under the knife, so it's more therapy for that. But as far as beginning HRT, it's a little... hold on. Go ahead, Daebrian. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, just for me, because I'm ballroom, I have a history of ballroom. Coming in the ballroom scene, I met a lot of trans women who they did it for ballroom. And so hearing your story is very, very new to me because all I ever knew coming up, and this is from somebody who went straight from military straight into the ballroom scene.
Wow.
There was no being just a regular gay man growing up. It was like I was DL in military and now I'm in the ballroom scene. Wow. So what I'm learning and what I'm seeing,
story.
So what I'm learning and what I'm seeing is young gay boys, very pretty boys and all that, getting rushed and forced into becoming transgendered, and looking back, I don't think a lot of them even really wanted it, but they wanted the attention.
Yeah. So or make the money.
So for me, hearing your story thus far is it blows my mind because all I ever connected the trans women's and trans men community with is ballroom,
the visual,
and it was
and the attention.
Bitch, she's over when she's in drag.
Yeah.
Let's
stick a moan in her.
As a house, let's all take and give her moans and make sure she gets to all these appointments and all of that. And I've witnessed a few different trans women today who are known, trans women in our society. Literally in 1 month go from this little gay boy to now this full-on woman.
Yeah.
And sometimes I even ask myself, like, I wonder how they feel when they wake up. Do they say, oh my God, what did I do?
I mean, I can't speak to that, but I have heard of instances like that. I always tell people that that's why I emphasize that me personally, it's been an evolution. A lot of people, I think that transition for I shouldn't say the wrong reasons, for reasons that they feel are appropriate. That's something that they have to unpack and deal with because it's not all Barbie makeup bundles. It's not all roses all the time. And I know that I grapple with that within my dating life in particular because of how trans women are represented in a lot of areas like pornography, for example. A lot of men don't think that I'm worthy, don't see the humanity in me. They see I want to try something, like a trial run, like a 15-day trial subscription type thing, and I'm just not that girl. So, but it's very interesting that you brought that up because I too wonder, how they must feel in the morning. The people who have done it for those reasons. That's why you have to make sure that when you do transition, you have to. For me, I did a lot of writing. It takes a lot of soul searching because once you start, I mean, you can stop. Yeah. But it's like, if you start and the physical changes start happening and you start, some things are irreversible.
So hold on. So you met your first trans girl when? I
met my first trans, friendship.
Friend or just in person? Or?
The first time I saw a trans woman was a plus-sized, vivacious, gargantuan personality in Chicago. Her name was Hershey. She was in Jackson Park.
Come on, Hershey.
And she was and she needed a ride. And again, Shar had the Camry. And I just remember her being very auntie. Think Monique in her baby girl, give me a ride around the corner. And she just, I mean, we never got a chance to talk, but I did have in depth. But I did have a friend who I grew up with who we took separate paths because I like, for example, I went and did my things, all of my transition work through the quote-unquote system. And she had the option to, not everybody has the option to, but she chose to go through the streets. That's a totally different experience. And the reason why I chose to do things the way that I wanted to is because I just needed everything monitored. Like, my body's not a science experiment. I need to know that what I'm putting in my body is the real stuff. Like, there's too many risks that go on with not going through a physician. So I need you to draw my blood, check my levels, prescribe me what's meant for me, because what's meant for me may not be meant for the next girl. And so, yeah, that was interesting to see her path as it compared to mine. Like, she's fine, but she rushed and got a lot of work done. I mean, body dysmorphia is real with trans people.
And can you describe what the transitioning process is for the listeners who are not aware?
Well, what I will say is not every trans person decides to physically change anything. So that is important to acknowledge. Because, again, gender and gender identity exists in between the ears, meaning the brain, and that does not always translate to the outside of things. Plus resources, financial stimulus. Like, if you're going to do it, you might as well wait and do it right. Why rush and get some type of back alley type situation, in my opinion.
And to piggyback off of what he said, okay, once you found the language that I'm trans, you just did your own research on transitioning?
Yes, because Google is free. Google is free. And
so you found a system to go through?
Yeah, well, at the time, I was still on my parents' insurance. And so I actually, through meeting, it's funny how things connect, because through going to the Janet Mock seminar and meeting trans women, I was able to connect in that network. Where do you get hormones? How do you start this? And phone calls, but you have to be proactive. Can't help nobody that don't want to be helped. And I was all up and I was in people's inboxes, and just trying to find like safe spaces. I know for me, Twitter was a big safe space because I was able to find people through hashtags and things like that. And so, yeah, that's how I was able to, I got my insurance like switched over. I was like on my dad's insurance. I didn't tell him. We did some stuff in some offices, made some calls, and they were like, April 1st, it'll be switched over. I went to Howard Brown Medical Facility in Chicago, and my doctor was Dr. Torrance, and everything, the ball got to rolling.
So the first step into transitioning is to get a hormone shot?
No. The first step into, because not everybody does hormones. Not every trans person does hormones.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
That is
because that's what makes you become soft.
But there are some under the trans umbrella. That's why a lot of trans women are trying to reclaim the term transsexual, because that's considered dated now. But the trans umbrella is very broad because it could. A lot of people exist somewhere in the middle, but they identify as trans. And so that's why I emphasize that it's a feeling. It's who you are. It's who you know for sure yourself to be. So not all the time does that call for scalpels, syringes, and things like that. So it's a personal choice. It's a personal decision to take hormones.
But
you don't
your
have
first transition was, let me go get some hormones.
My first that's why I emphasize medically transitioning. I didn't start medically transitioning until then, but I believe that I transitioned long ago. Long ago. I just didn't have the language, the resources, or the examples that a lot of children have today, where they can look on the TV and see a Janet Mock, see a Laverne Cox, see a Shar Jossell, and say, wow, I see myself reflected through. She gets what I feel, and then begin to tap into what they have a reference point, which is something I didn't have.
So when you say the term transsexual is dated, and because I like to be politically correct, and I'd like all of our listeners to also be politically correct,
it's dated to some people.
Okay,
it's dated to some people because, like, for example, when I'm on panels or in things, like what I've started saying is trans woman.
Okay,
I'm a trans woman. I believe that it became dated because a lot of people, the way the brain works, when they hear transsexual, they automatically associate sex with it.
That makes sense.
Sex work, you know, yeah. And that's just the way the brain works for some people. And so it is considered a dated term, much like transvestite, which is awful. I just hate that word.
Well, I heard a transvestite is more so when somebody's
like
dressing up for sexual desire. Like you put on women's negligee and you feel like
and you busty or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay,
like,
well, excuse me.
Well, I mean that may not necessarily be the case. I feel like it's a dated term in terms of
no, but transvestite does. I feel like it's more reflective of like cross dressing.
Yeah, exactly.
I was always taught the ballroom terms.
And what's that?
That? So
educate me now.
All right. And let us know when it's offensive because we're not the only people who may speak that language, and we want to educate everyone.
I think it's safer for everyone just to say trans woman.
Yeah. Trans woman. Okay.
Or if you don't know, because some people don't identify as either.
Yeah,
like
just say woman.
The terminology gets real sticky. Just say trans.
Okay. Yeah, but tranny is not right.
Tranny is, oh my God, please don't say that.
Okay.
I say trans now.
Never say that. That has become sort of like the N-word within the community.
So speaking of the N-word, like with that terminology, is it acceptable? Like the N-word is acceptable amongst Black people. Amongst the trans community, would that word be acceptable?
I never use that word, but I've heard trans people use it. Now, if a gay man were to use it, I don't think, because the gay man is not trans.
Right. Got it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Got it.
And then definitely as a definite no for the straight community.
Oh, a definite no.
Got it.
I don't use the F word that Kaya so.
Oh, yes, that one.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't use the F word.
I know, right. Well, I use that one too when I'm trying to mean it in a derogatory way.
The 6-letter F word.
Yeah.
Yes, that one. Yeah.
That motor mouth, Kaya Shimon.
But in the terminology for ballroom, we would refer to a trans woman as a femme queen.
Yeah, I have heard that.
Okay.
I have heard that.
Us gay men,
because I used to try to claim that.
Yeah,
like I'm a femme. Like I have friends that were involved, and they're like, "No, girl, you're a butch queen." I'm like, "No, I'm femme." Nothing about me is butch.
Yeah. And so and that was very new for me, coming straight from because like I said, I did it all backwards. I went straight from being like DL military to ballroom scene to living as a young gay man, just living life.
Yeah,
and it was so much. I had to kind of retrain myself.
You have to unlearn a lot of stuff.
I really did. But butch queen was for us gay men, and femme queen, and then drag queen was for the ones that just dressed up in it, but they really were butch queens.
Yes.
And then
I've heard
but even that gets sticky because there's a lot of drag queens who
it was called butch queen up in drag, and then there was butch queen first time in drag at a ball. And then it was junior femme queens. Junior femme queens was the femme queens who had no surge, but they were moaning.
Oh.
Junior?
So you were junior femme queen.
And so as a
grown ass woman.
Amen.
As I progressed in the ballroom scene and became legendary, it was more so they were asking us to
how you just gonna say you becoming legendary?
They were asking. They would request legends more so to judge balls and stuff like that. So we knew from coming up in the ballroom scene what to look for. Yeah. So imagine gay men judging junior femme queens and femme queens on if they had surge or not, and if they were taking hormones, and it would get. Looking back on it now,
would get violent.
Looking back on it now, sticky. It was very humiliating in a sense because it was times where not me per se, but it was times where judges on the panel with me would say, "Oh, honey, lift your shirt up, let me see," and they would lift their shirts up, and if they had the start of the boob,
the little knot,
then it was a chop because girl, you've been moaning. And this is for the girls that are not moaning.
The juniors. Okay.
You could tell.
Oh, that is so crazy to me. So there's almost like this push to have surgery.
There was you're either going to have it and you're going to be a full-on femme queen. You need to have, and once you did that, then it was like, if you did it right and you had all the right money put into it, then it was over for you. It was, bitch, she sits. Oh, she took her time and da-da-da-da-da.
That's also, I feel like that also should be noted, because coming up in Chicago, I would hear terms from friends that were in the ballroom community. One that sticks with me that I always use is a crock pot girl versus a microwave girl.
Yes.
Yes.
The microwave girls are
rushed overnight, and you're supposed to be a crock pot.
Yeah.
If you're transitioning, I know that the dysmorphia and the dysphoria is real. I even experience it. The most beautiful, whether you're cisgender or transgender, everybody has insecurities, physical insecurities. But put yourself in the crock pot and set yourself on low for 8 hours.
Yes.
Don't preheat that damn oven for 425 and stick yourself in there for 15 minutes.
So I have a question. So is it noticeable, the girls who are crock pot versus microwave? Can you tell? I feel like
and I be getting it wrong.
Now let me also make this clear, because hormones work differently in everybody, especially if I don't even want to bring up physicians, because it just works. Because I have a girlfriend who is very thin, beautiful, a model, and she, like, my breast size is a 36B. And that's my natural breast. I have not had breast implants, and she was on hormones for a while, and all she had was like what you mentioned, like the little nub. So she wanted to get. So it varies.
Okay,
it varies. Like, hormones don't do to every. Some people naturally produce more testosterone. Some people naturally produce more estrogen. Just like with cis people, that's why sometimes we see young women with beards. That's why sometimes we see
men with boobs.
Men with boobs or with smaller testicles.
Or smaller penises.
Sometimes they got big dicks with small balls.
Or the other way around.
Anyway.
So
I'm just saying.
So back to the transitioning part. So how often do you have to take hormones? You get a shot monthly, or what is it?
No, for me, I do mine bi-weekly, which is very annoying.
Oh, God.
Are you able to do it yourself?
Yes. No, it's not in my butt, it's in my thigh.
Oh, okay.
That's the way I was trained to do it when I started. When I got my first hormone shot April 12th, 2012.
Okay.
And the caring nurse, shout out to Dr. Torrance and his whole team. She taught me how to do it. And then from there, I literally walked across the street to Walgreens with my prescription in hand and picked up my batch of moans and went home.
Okay.
So it was very convenient. And so for the past, it's been a while, but it gets... Some days you just don't feel like it, you know?
Yeah.
And so I've had because it's a very emotional experience for me in particular. I've learned different things about myself with being on hormones versus when I'm not on hormones. There are starch differences. And it's like I understand. Like
So you're more emotional when you take them? Like, because you get more...
when they're fresh, I can be. Like, I can be either very mean or very... Like, I lived with 3 gay men. We were roommates when I first moved to LA, and they can tell you. Living with Shar was an interesting experience because the tears, oh my God. I mean, I'm already an emotional person, but oh my gosh, the tears. And then also what I've noticed, like in my personal journey with HRT, that's hormone replacement therapy, my libido has dropped. And so that has forced me to really look at certain things as it pertains to men from a different angle, because I'm not ruled by sexual urges or desires. It's like, okay, what else are we going to do? What else is going on, as Nene says?
So I have a question as pertains to hormones.
Okay.
I know you said that you get kind of like mood swings.
Yes.
Does it make you, and maybe you can't answer this, maybe your roommates could.
Okay.
Your roommates could.
No, I'm a very introspective person, so go ahead.
Because you would always hear, oh, child, they crazy. I would always hear that she's on hormones, so she's crazy. How much of that plays into the truth?
I wouldn't say that it makes you crazy, but it makes you. I think crazy is subjective because what you may think is crazy, I may not. But also, I've just noticed that you really have to, and I still struggle now. I isolate myself a lot when I have these feelings. It's extreme highs and lows, and that might just come with living in LA too.
Yeah,
for everybody.
With everybody. But I did notice that is the first thing that I noticed was, aside from the physical changes, which are slow, girls don't get to thinking that you're gonna get on these hormones and you're gonna wake up overnight and be just cunt out, because that's not always the changes happen, but they are slow. Like if I look at old pictures of myself, I'm like, wow, okay, I see what my face did there. I see the little waist curvature, okay, but it doesn't seem like it in real time. But I will say, for me, it has hormones when they are fresh. They make me a little moody, and I know to expect that. Okay. I know to expect that. And so in turn, sometimes I've procrastinated, like knowing I'm supposed to do it like every Saturday. Like sometimes I've missed, and it becomes every Wednesday.
Oh, because it's like maybe like the first 3 days after you'll be
or sometimes I just do not feel like poking myself in the damn thigh today. I just don't feel like it. I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I have the option. Yeah. But and there are other ways. You can take pills. There's patches. There's a myriad of different things. But I chose to do the injectables because you get the fastest results. Right. Okay. Because it's immediate to the bloodstream. And then with the pills, you really take a beating with your liver.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I told you all I research.
Prep will wear your liver out.
So what's the longest amount of time you've went without taking them?
Oh God, it was a summer.
Okay.
It was a whole 90 days, and I was losing my mind, and it was because my insurance had fell through, and they were trying to charge me. I think it was like $250, and I was like, who has money for that and still has to pay? It was awful. But yeah, so I haven't for the most part, I have consistently been on, because I have friends that have went years without being on. So for the most part, I've been.
So with that 3 months that you were off, did you notice any reversible changes?
No. I mean, in my head, I thought that I was seeing stuff, but my roommates were like, bitch, you are tripping and tweaking. Go lock yourself in your room. Because I was like, like I said, the dysmorphia is real. Like not every day I wake up feeling beautiful, pretty, it's just, and so when I was not on them, I think psychologically it didn't reaffirm me, knowing that I had, the fish food pumping through my veins, as they call it. And so I did start feeling like fish food. I started feeling like, oh my gosh, like it did feel very reversible. It's psychological warfare, really.
So in your body, what was the first notice that you saw after taking?
I felt ridiculous. I was like, oh my God, my shoulders are so broad.
I'm talking about once you were on the hormones. Like, what was the first thing you saw?
The first thing that I noticed was my chest.
Okay.
And when I first started, I hate that my hard drive crashed because I really wanted to pull up these pictures. I had an HP at the time, and I formed these collages. You guys are going to think I'm so weird.
Really? No.
You know what I mean? So weird. So every day, like as soon as I got the shot from the nurse, I went home, lifted up my shirt, took a picture. And every time that I did a hormone shot, I took a picture.
Really?
Every single time for like a year.
Wow.
And so I would group them in groups of 4. So they were divided by basically monthly. Well, two months, because it's every 2 weeks that I do the shot. And I saw the changes. Like I was bigger. I had started to lose weight. Like my stomach, rib cage area was a little bit more fleshy.
I might need that.
And I noticed that my nipples had gotten darker. I have a lot of cis girlfriends. Cis, for those of you who don't know, those are people who, like I'm sitting at the table with 3 cis gay men. They're chemistry terms, cis and trans. And cis means that you identify with the gender you were assigned at birth.
Okay. Oh, okay. You know what? I didn't know that because I be seeing that shit on Grindr and I block them because I'm like, oh, they trans.
No.
I didn't know what's.
That's what cis. A lot of people associate cis with straight, but that's not the case because you can be cis and gay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just like you can be trans and gay. Like a lot of people need to acknowledge that. Like LGBT is a part of the.
You said that. I already know.
T is a part of the acronym, but T is the only one that's not a sexuality. T is a gender identity. So you can be trans and straight. You can be trans and gay. And trans and bi. That those are possibilities.
Yeah. I know some trans straight people.
Yeah.
Oh,
you're sitting next to one.
I was going to ask you, do you identify as trans and straight?
I do.
Okay, perfect.
It fucks people up. It fucks their mind up.
It makes sense.
I would assume that.
So you don't do the gay boys?
Well, you know what? I am still working, and don't jump on me for this. I'm still working through labels because I will entertain, most of the men that I entertain identify as heterosexual, but that comes with a lot of problems because a lot of times I'm there first. So it becomes this experiment, or it becomes just this thing to do. Or they're bi, but I have personal issues that I'm still working through with bisexual identified men because I don't want to feel duped. I don't want to sleep with you. I don't want to publicly claim you as my man, and then something happens that you cheated on me with a man because that invalidates my womanhood. What have I worked so hard for, and you're sleeping with the man? Like, and it, these are scenarios that I
bisexual men either for a similar reason, but I've never thought of it the way that you saw it.
I do think I do deal with bisexual men, but I drum up these scenarios. Like I said, I read a lot, I watch a lot, I consume a lot of content. So things come across my desk, so to speak, that I'm like, okay, Shar, what would you do? What wouldn't you do? And that is why I do not personally date gay identified men, because gay means that you're attracted to the same sex, and I am not a man.
So how can you tell the difference between somebody dating you for you and versus a fetish?
A lot of times it's telltale.
Yeah.
I remember I was dating this white guy who, which seems to be all that I date. Not by choice. I love black men, but black men don't love me. Hello, somebody.
I wish niggas didn't love me.
I was dating this one white guy. He was a creative. I was like, yes, he's gonna help me build my website. Like, it was good.
He's gonna help me build my website.
Because he was very good on the tech side of things, and he was also a creative. You know, I'm Tavarus, I'm a creative. And it quickly became like, I can typically learn because men will be like, oh, let's go out on a date, but then the date never comes. Like, you kind of dangle that carrot in front of my face, but you keep wanting to come over, or you want me to come over, or you're texting me a certain, and so I'll cut all of that out. Today, 30-year-old grown-ass woman, Shar, I'm self-sufficient. I've been self-sufficient, paying my own bill. I don't need you for anything. So if I feel like having sex with you, I don't subscribe to any wacky Steve Harvey 90-day think like a man bullshit. If I want to have sex with you on the first date, I will. But I will not be pressured or forced to feel as if I owe you something because you're giving me attention. And so I don't deal with that. But it's very, I feel like you have to have a discerning spirit, and I can typically tell. Like, I want to go out. I would like to go out.
So where do you, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, where do you hang out and meet men, actually?
I don't really hang out because the thing is, I'm not looking for no man.
Okay.
Because I've noticed that does nothing for me but complicate the situation. Like, I've tried Tinder, I've tried the little stuff. To me, for me personally, to keep my head on straight and to keep me from going crazy, I just choose to focus on career.
Okay.
And if a man comes, then he just comes. But when I focus my energies towards dating, I've noticed, and I talked about this on the most recent episode of my podcast, I joke around, and don't cry for me, listeners of Rated MA. Don't cry for me. But I've noticed that in my personal experience, when I look back over the course of the last 15 years that I've been sexually active, I get used a lot as a kickstand. That's what I call it, an emotional pit stop, where cisgender heterosexual men will enter my life and entertain me, and we have fun, and I'm thinking this is leading somewhere, and I'm literally just there to stroke his ego until he builds his confidence back up to leave me for a cis woman who he can then go do whatever with and start his family. So that has been the literal pattern of my dating life.
Have you ever been in love?
Never. I have never loved a man. I've really, really liked a man. But I really liked it. I cannot say that it's gotten that far because of those instances, and I try not to let that jade me, and I try to respect people as individuals and come to the table. But for the most part, the overarching theme of Shar dating has been me falling for men because of what they show me, and it's Netflixing, and and takeout, and it's all these romantic gestures, but it's only for a moment in time.
How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel totally invalidated. It makes me feel horrible, but I'm okay. That's why I don't do it. Like, I'm okay.
Are you currently single?
I am.
Okay, you are.
I am.
Now, what type of men are you attracted to versus the men who you attract?
Right.
Oh God, I'm attracted to men who are go-getters. I don't want a slouch on the couch because I'm not a slouch on the couch. I like men who, and I find that, and I always bring this up, I know that people who are listening to this who have followed my whatever know that when I first moved to LA, I was entertaining this guy and he told me that he purposely targets, well, he didn't say targets, but he purposely dates overweight women and trans women on purpose. And when I asked him why, he said it's because they're always looking for love. So he knows that he'll always be taken care of.
Yes. He should call me because I'm still looking for love.
He was very attractive. He was very attractive, but he was a scammer. And so, not to me though.
Right.
You know, but so the men that I attract seem to be quote unquote normal men. Like a lot of times, like when I was on dating apps like Tinder that I mentioned, men would be like rolling out the red carpet for me, like my friend got, jazz night going here, let's go grab some drinks, and then if I chose to disclose that, hey, by the way, I'm trans, then it instantly turns into, can you host?
I was gonna get to that.
So you don't put TS or nothing on your?
I did. I tried a million and one different things.
Know.
And a lot of times, for one, a lot of times they don't read.
Yeah.
It'll be there on the dating profile.
I don't read.
Niggas don't read. They see what they like and they swipe whatever direction they want to swipe. And on top of that, I don't feel, and some of you all may turn your nose up to this, but I don't feel that I owe every man my story. If you buy me a drink at the club, I'm not going to be like, thanks, by the way. Like, I don't feel like I owe you that.
Right. I agree with that.
And it comes with different deliveries.
Right.
Like, certain men require certain things. Certain men you tell that night. Certain men you tell a week later. Certain men you tell over the phone. Certain men you meet up at Starbucks Saturday at 11 and tell. Like, it's such a dicey game with revealing that, because to me that's sensitive information, and I'm public. I am publicly a trans woman. I have nothing to hide.
Right.
However, and I'm Googleable. I have a very distinct name, but I don't feel that I owe every man that explanation. So I've been through, as you just mentioned, that whole trial and error of having it on my profile.
And I was gonna touch on that too. There's a transgendered woman that I know. Ballroom. Her name is Temperance, and she once did a kind of like, she was just maybe like a PSA, if you will, on when and where is it okay to tell people. And she said what you said. She doesn't feel like she should always have to explain her story. No. She says, what do you do when you walk in a club? Hey, everybody, by the way, there's a transgendered woman in the club, and hey, by the way, I'm about to start working here. Just want to let everybody know I'm trans.
You do not do that. I have nothing to be ashamed of. I want to make that clear. I have nothing. I just don't wear it on a shirt because that's not my selling point. I look at my transness like a lot of, like, you all may look at your gayness.
Exactly.
It is a slither of the pie. It is not all encompassing what makes me up to be who I am. It is a part of my identity. It is not my sole identity.
Right.
So I'm not going to wear that on a shirt. I'm not going to present to the world like that because I'm a woman first. And there's so many. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a niece. I'm a coworker. There's so many different facets that go into the Shar gumbo that is not, trans. Like, transness is not my selling point.
Now, have you ever had a dangerous encounter?
By the grace of God, no. I've had awkward encounters, but I've never had anything like, as far as anyone like threatening my life.
Or like you had a guy over and you hadn't disclosed it yet, and he's trying to push up on you, and you like, wait, I gotta tell you.
That has happened in clubs.
Oh, okay.
In clubs.
I mean, like in an intimate setting where he's trying to fuck.
You know what? I will share a traumatic experience that happened to me.
Oh God, this is so good.
And I'm only sharing this because is it already out there? I don't care.
Well, tell me something new.
I don't think that it's out there, but I'm going to share it because I feel like the girls, we need to take care of ourselves. And so I met this guy last year, Memorial Day, at the Chapel, which is the club that neighbors the Abbey.
Yes.
I was out with one of my gay friends who inadvertently cock blocks because he's not, people wouldn't assume that he's gay.
Oh. Okay.
And so...
He's single?
Is he?
He is not. And so we were out.
He's not cute or not single?
No, he is cute.
I know, I'm
He's
kidding.
cute. He's not single. And so we were out minding our business. And so this guy was at the Chapel because, West Hollywood has kind of become... West Hollywood is not not like the gay pocket of town anymore. Because there's nothing for anyone to do in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants any excitement, you take your ass to West Hollywood, whether you're gay, straight, whatever.
Yeah.
And so he was there with a few coworkers. And so he offered to buy me a drink. I said, sure. Mind you, I'm side-eyeing him because I'm like, okay, he's a gay man.
Yeah.
Buy me a drink, whatever. And it turns out he didn't identify. Like, he was not gay. And so we ended up spending the entire night together. Like, this was like midday at the chapel. So we ended up spending the entire day together. He ends up, I remember that he wanted to kiss me. He had gotten so drunk, he was trying to kiss me. And I was kind of like, no, I don't want to. And then everybody started encouraging it. And so I just kissed him. I'm like, okay, what's the kiss going to do? And so fast forward to a month later. So every weekend we were kicking it. So starting from Memorial Day to a month later, we were kicking it heavy. I spent his birthday with him. I met more of his coworkers. Like, we are out.
He was black or white?
He is white.
Okay.
And so there was one fateful night leading into July. This was right before July 1st, and I was celebrating a friend's birthday party at Blow Fridays.
Yeah.
And I remember leaving early, and my friends were like, bitch, why are you leaving early? And I was like, because he's calling, and I'm about to Uber over his house, bitch. Like, I was feeling it. I had my black mini dress on. I was feeling it. And so my overprotective friends are like, bitch, send us the address, take pictures inside of there just in case we got to kick that door open. I was like, okay. So I go over there. He has Alexa. He's commanding Alexa to play Frank Ocean, and she's playing like the music and stuff. And we're kicking it on his couch, drinking rosé. I should mention that I have been drinking all night. Okay. Like, I haven't drinking, but I'm not I'm a girl who knows how to handle the party. Okay. I'm not a sloppy drunk. I could be toasted, but I'm not. I'm always aware. That's the Chicago in me. I'm looking at exits, and I'm aware.
Okay.
And so. And so, of course, once the rosé is finished, things start getting hot and heavy.
Yes.
And so we start undressing each other, and I started performing an act on him.
Yes, act.
And so he took off my dress, took off my black mini dress. He unhooked my bra, my VS bra, and
come on.
Yes, give me setting, girl. Okay. And back
I should mention, you guys don't judge me, I'm drinking on this show. I'm going to keep it cute though. But anyway, as he goes to pull down my panties, he stops. And he sits back. I should mention, he's fully naked. And he sits back and he goes, why didn't you tell me? And my knee-jerk reaction, I just burst out in tears. Like, I just burst out in tears. Because keep in mind, we've been having such a good time. We have been together from sunup to sundown every weekend for 4 weeks. And I said, I thought you knew, which was wrong. I want to emphasize, you never should assume that people know your tea. Never.
Yes.
And so I was just like, I thought you knew, because I did think, like, the coworkers he was out with when I met him, they were gay men. I know that gay men
talk.
You all over that girl.
Exactly.
Let me tell you. Gay men can't wait to spill the tea on the girl.
But he was with white boys, right?
No, he was with one was black and I think 2 were Mexican.
Oh, well, they probably not as messy as.
Please.
I was about to say that has nothing to do with ethnicity.
Okay. I mean, true, but
and so I just remember him staring at me, and he just goes, I think we need another drink. And so he goes to the kitchen, and I am shook. I'm like putting on my dress because I don't know. You know, you go to the kitchen.
Where this is going?
You don't know.
I gotta get ready.
Yes. Yes.
Come on, Chicago.
Yes. Fuck these shoes. And so at this point, I'm feeling like the scum of the earth. Like, I'm feeling so low because it's like, Shar, you know better. Like, bitch, you know better. And so he starts drinking again, and I took one sip, and I said, you know what? I think I'm gonna go. Because at this point, my makeup's ruined. I had cried, my lash hanging off, and I feel more tears coming up because I don't know how is this night going to end. You saying that you think we need another drink? Are you ready for me to go? Are you trying to be nice? Are you like? So I said, I think I'm going to leave. And as I got up to go, when I got to the door, he grabbed my arm and kissed me. Yes. So now I'm totally confused. I'm totally, my mind is doing cartwheels. Why are you kissing me after the sesh was just canceled? Because I'm thinking, and so he asked me to text him when I got home. I get out to the curb, and in true Shar fashion, I'm crying out, I end up throwing up. I'm so disgusted with myself. I'm so scared. I'm so shook. Anything could have happened in his apartment. I don't know where, it's almost as if I would have preferred for him to yell at me and say, get the fuck out. It's almost like I would have, but because he handled me with such care and like my mind didn't know what to do. I'm like, where's his mind? Especially with that kiss. Like the kiss was passionate, okay? And so I always tell this part because it gets funny. I get in my Uber to go home, and my Uber driver, this guy, he says, how's your night going? And I say that was a big mistake for him to ask me that because I let it all out in his backseat. Well, and he did it. I don't even remember the advice he was dishing out. We had quite the ride home, and I ended up texting the guy when I got home, and I said home to let him know that I was home. And the next morning when I was on FaceTime with my friends explaining to them what happened, because they're like, girl, your hair is all over your head, your makeup's not washed off, you got tear streaks, I got the little message with him saying great. And that is the last time I ever heard from him.
So have you hit him up after that?
I did not, no, we were following each other on Instagram, and he still follows me. He never says anything, though. He occasionally checks my story. Never says anything. I unfollowed him, though.
Never like a Happy New Year, big head?
No, nothing. And, I mean, but they typically always do that. I'm not going to even front.
That was a good man. But I feel like he still want to be like...
No, but that's not my job, because now the ball is in your court, because you stopped the function. I've been made... You know that I was made to feel uncomfortable. Right. So if I'm not the girl that's going to jump back out there. And so I did end up, when I was following him, like a month later, I replied to his Snap story, and he never responded back to me. But what's also funny is he ended up losing his job temporarily, and he hit me up. Yes, and asked was my job hiring. And like a dumbass, I mean, I consulted with my boss, because my boss was like my bitch at the time. Like I closed her door, and she was like, well, Shar, what do you want to do? And what did my dumb ass do? All my friends were like, don't help him out. And I submitted his resume to HR. He did not get hired.
Oh, okay.
And then before I left that job, before that job wrapped, I told her to discard the resume, because I'd be damned if I step back into that work environment and he's there. Oh my God, that would drive me up the wall.
That's the nerve of people.
But I did, as a dumbass, I was emotional too, and I felt for whatever reason, I felt like I owed him that.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt like I owed him something.
So hold on.
And you're just good people. Thank you for listening, guys. Be sure to tune in next week for part 2 of our interview with Shar.